The figure at the window. It was the dead of winter, and the snow outside was falling in thick, heavy waves, covering the world in an eerie, suffocating silence. I was 14 at the time, and I had just crawled into bed, knowing that I'd likely stay up too late watching the snowfall. Something about winter nights fascinated me. The way the world outside transformed into a quiet, endless abyss. The way my breath fogged up the window as I pressed my face against the cold, frost-bitten glass. That night, as I lay in bed staring at the eerie shadows the moon cast across my room, I heard a sound. At first, I assumed it was just ice breaking off the gutters or a tree branch swaying in the wind. But then the tapping changed. It wasn't random, it was deliberate, intentional. I sat up, my heart pounding, and turned my head toward the window. That's when I saw it. A figure outside just beyond the glass. It was small, maybe 4 feet tall, but its body was entirely black, as if the darkness itself had come to life and taken form. No features, no face, just a void. I froze, my entire body stiff with terror. My parents' room was down the hall, but the overwhelming sense of dread that filled my chest kept me rooted in place. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, watching me. Then, a faint crash. I spun around, expecting my dad to rush in, but no one was there. The air felt heavier, charged with an unshakable tension. The room was silent except for the sound of my own trembling breath. When I turned back toward the window, the figure was gone. I tried convincing myself it was my imagination, a trick of the moonlight and my sleepy mind. But deep down, I knew better. And years later, when I finally told my parents about it, they exchanged a look that sent icy tendrils of fear crawling up my spine. Because the night before, my mom had woken up to the sound of tapping on their window. For years, I tried to forget about it, but every winter, when the first snowfall blankets the ground, I hear it again. The soft, deliberate tapping. And every time I wonder if I should look, or if this time the shadow will be inside my room. The Man in the Snow. When I was a teenager, I lived in a small town in Minnesota. The winters were brutal, with thick, suffocating snowfall burying the roads and making travel nearly impossible. One night, after a particularly fierce storm, I decided to walk to my aunt's house a few blocks away. The streets were empty, the silence so thick it felt like the world had been swallowed up in ice. Halfway there, I passed an old, dilapidated house that had been abandoned for years, or at least, I thought it was abandoned. As I trudged through the snow, the front door creaked open, and an old man stepped out. His clothes were tattered, his beard thick with frost, and his eyes. Something about his eyes made my stomach turn. They were too dark, like twin voids sucking in the pale glow of the street lamp. "You shouldn't be out here, kid," he rasped, his breath curling in the freezing air. "Come inside. Warm up," he said in a suspicious tone. Every instinct in my body screamed no. I forced a polite smile and shook my head. "I'm good, thanks." But when I tried to step away, his hand shot out and grabbed my wrist. His grip was iron, his fingers like frozen claws digging into my skin. "You should really come inside," he said in that suspicious tone. Panic flooded my body. I yanked my arm free and stumbled backward. At that exact moment, a snowplow turned the corner, its bright headlights washing over us. The old man hissed and backed into the shadows. I didn't wait. I ran the rest of the way to my mother's house, my pulse hammering in my ears. The next day, I passed by that house again. The front door was sealed shut, a thick layer of untouched snow piled in front of it, like no one had stepped outside at all. That was over 10 years ago, but every winter, without fail, I find fresh footprints outside my window. And sometimes, on the coldest nights, I hear a whisper through the snow. The Culvert Tragedy. I grew up in a town where the winters were as merciless as they were beautiful. Every year we'd hear about someone who didn't make it, someone who got caught in a storm, lost in the woods, or froze to death on the side of the road. But one story stuck with me more than any other. There was a man in our town, a quiet drifter who mostly kept to himself. People said he drank too much, wandered the streets at night, looking for shelter wherever he could find it. One winter, after an especially heavy snowfall, he vanished. Some thought he had finally left town. Others figured the cold had claimed him, but no one really knew what had happened. Until spring. When the snow started to melt, parts of the town flooded. The culverts, usually clogged with ice and debris, overflowed. City workers went to clear one out, but something was blocking it. At first they thought it was just a mass of tangled branches, but as they got closer, they realized it was the drifter. His body was curled up inside the culvert, frozen solid. It was as if he had crawled inside to escape the cold but never made it back out. The water had been rising all around him for months, yet he had remained trapped in the ice. The part that unsettled everyone, though, was his face. He wasn't frozen in an expression of pain or fear. He was smiling. And every winter since, when the culverts freeze over again, people swear they see someone standing just beyond the ice. Watching. Smiling.